Just start with telling us who you are and a little bit about yourself.
I am Christy Town, also known as the Art Lab TX. I'm an artist here in Waco. I do illustrating, painting, watercolors, acrylics, color pencils mostly, but you name it, I do it, minus oils. I've been doing it for, I guess, professionally for since 2015.
What is your earliest memory of creating?
That would be when I was probably 6 or 7. I have a little scrap sheet of paper that I remember sketching my family on there and a little house. I just remember doodling that when I was younger.
Did you grow up around a lot of creative influences?
No, I did not. My parents didn't have creative endeavors. My mom and dad both have like a 9 to 5.
Mhm.
So they have at the time, I think, when I was growing up, they were working in office settings, so nothing creative around me.
So, was there a moment or an event or person that sparked this creative journey for you or put you on this particular path?
I would say probably my grandmother on my dad's side. She painted acrylics and oils. When I first met her, she was painting. They lived in a historic bed and breakfast in Memphis, Texas. I remember her always painting in the ballroom, and she always had a canvas in there with her paints, all of her acrylics. And one day I was just like, "Can you teach me?" At that point, I think I had maybe some art classes, but nothing really solid. So we just sat down one day when we were visiting her. We had like the canvas. I think I still have the canvas. Actually, it never got done. She started, and it was one of like we learned from one of those old acrylic how-to books. It was very large format. I remember going through the steps. Her finished piece is at my grandfather's house, but I still have the piece. It's ugly.
What was your relationship like with creativity at that time?
I would say it was very momentary because I would draw and sketch in sketchbooks very casually. And then whatever I made in elementary school, that's what I made. I did crafting and stuff like origami and things like that, but didn't really have as much of a connection as younger. I think that like developed more in college or
Okay.
maybe high school.
When did you start to be more consistent with your creativity?
I definitely say like high school. That's whenever I would be sketching at all points. I would sketch in between classes. I would sketch during class. I was, well, I still am, but I'm into anime and mangas and whatever manga I was reading, doodling the characters and stuff. And actually, that's when I started kind of my love of letters too, doing calligraphy and all that.
So, how has your style or creative approach changed over time?
I would say it's definitely changed recently. It's gone more from visual to more like lettering work. So less abstract work, focusing in on the art of letters and stuff,
Mhm.
calligraphy. I still do a lot of imagery work, but it's more like travel sketching. I'm spending a little less time on really time intensive and technique intensive pieces, and they're definitely a lot smaller. I still do large pieces from time to time, but most of my daily work is mostly little.
Your style and maybe even mediums have shifted over time.
Definitely. I used to be way more like pencil sketching and acrylic based to now like watercolors and pen work.
Do you think this reflects anything about your life and how it has changed?
Well, I think in college was really when I like the turning point to switching to watercolors because there's something visceral about putting the watercolors to paper and letting it do its thing on the paper.
Mhm.
When I took my first watercolor classes, I feel like the turning point. I used to just do mostly acrylics before that, like acrylics and pencil work. Mostly because that's what college does is you take your drawing classes and all your basic courses. I was very focused in that direction. And then once I found watercolors, I was like, I'm just going to do all watercolors mostly.
What kind of creative ruts or challenges have you faced, and how have you moved through those?
Oh, I get ruts all the time. I probably get creative blocked at least once a year. I feel like that's probably season oriented. The start of the year when everybody's like, yeah, we're all doing our year resolutions and all that stuff. My brain is like, nope, I just got done with holiday season. I just need to take a break.
The post-holiday season depression is serious for lots of people because you've gone through all of this. Like you're spending money, you're spending time with people you don't normally see, you're having lots of events and you're just super busy. And then all of a sudden it's like that ends and you're kind of like, and a crash.
Yeah. So I've spent all my energy, barely any creative energy. I feel like as artists, people are like, oh, you make a bunch of presents. I'm like, nope, I don't make a bunch of presents. I'm just buying presents. All the energy is getting towards like birthdays. We have a lot of birthdays in the fall for our family and in winter. And so I'm just focused on surviving the holiday season.
So, is there anything that helps you get back into using art or creativity after a creative block or break?
Usually during my blog, I'm doing a lot of absorbing, which is probably not the best thing. On social media, I like look at a lot of how to's, like how to do clay art or something that's not related to watercolor. It's literally like a mental break. I'll take a pause on watercolors and start looking up techniques on other things like crochet, clay work, or woodwork. I'm super interested in the process of things, so that's my way of taking a break. Or I look up a bunch of recipes and I cook. I like to bake and cook.
Do you remember the first time you realized that art and creativity impacted your wellness or your mental health?
It was probably when I first got married. There was a lot of changes in my life. And that was around the time I graduated from college.
Mhm.
I graduated with a BFA in visual studies. Because school is so work intensive and you're focused on your studies, there's not a lot of time for creative downtime. And so I think for a year and a half, I wasn't painting or drawing or anything. I was just focused on school, trying to get my schoolwork done. Once I graduated, I had this moment where I was like, what do I do with my life? I didn't get a job in the education field. I was literally stuck. And I had a really low point, and I ended up picking up a paintbrush and painting one of my wedding flowers, which was a Guerrera daisy at the time. And I just sat and I had like a huge sheet of, I don't know, it was mixed media paper, I think, from college. I had taken it home from my dorm, and like it's a huge sheet of paper. And I just started painting the petals and just having a moment and just taking the time to create. I feel like that moment helped me come back into creating.
Mhm.
I guess at that point I was creatively blocked. Picking up the paintbrush, sitting down and doing. That was my way of getting out. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Do you still have that painting?
I do. It's in my closet somewhere. I definitely still have it. I did not throw it out.
Yeah, I was just curious if it was a sentimental thing for you.
I keep most of my work, and if I don't keep it, it was in between artwork. But that one I do still have in my closet.
How do you think now, years later, that making art impacts your mood, stress level, or the overall level of wellness?
Since I do it for work a lot of the time, I obligate myself to my artwork. So I'm trying to make more time for free flow painting, like my painting behind me. I did this in college. I'm trying to make more time for non-committal work, like just work that's for me, whether that's a drawing of something I found interesting on Instagram, copying something, doing a color palette, or painting. The other day, I took out some watercolor and I did watercolor shapes.
What I'm taking from what you're saying is that when you are doing creative things to make a living, it's not the same as when you are doing creative things just because it's something you want to do or that you are curious to explore. And so you're saying that you want to make more time for that play side of creativity.
Yeah, because I have an ongoing to-do list in my mind. And I'm like, I got to do this project and this project. And so I'm trying to make space for that play.
I have that ongoing to-do list too, but it is not art based. It is all the non-art things.
Understandable.
Yeah. Is there a time that you can think of where art felt really especially important or supportive to you?
Art, I feel like is always supportive for me. Anytime I'm feeling low energy, I go to my studio. There's something about it being in my creative space that recharges me, even though it's for work.
Yeah. Do you have a particular process that you go through when you go into your studio, or is it just kind of random?
So I'm trying not to be as random recently. I have a to-do list. Usually I'll look at my to-do list of projects that I need to do first. Then I'll do a little bit of each bullet point and move on to something that's a little more free flow. That's something that like inspired me in the past couple days. So I kind of try to prioritize the projects over the playtime.
What are the kinds of things that have been inspiring you lately?
I would say I'm supposed to be going in painting and doing some um, clay clay glazing over at Picasso, the commercialized Picasso, where you go and you take a already made clay figure, pottery shape, whatever, and then you glaze it and then they fire it for you. And I'm gonna go and hang out with a couple of my friends. And so I've been looking at different ways to like paint glaze that's like interesting. And probably just a lot of color recently. Like different color palettes have been pretty inspiring.
If you are struggling, what kind of art things do you turn to? Is there a particular theme or media or color that you tend to gravitate towards?
I think I do like a reset and I'll go back to pencil work.
Mm.
I have a whole bunch of photos that I always save daily. And I'll go through pictures that I found inspiring and then I'll just copy, not trace, but visually copy that onto my sketchbook as a way to take a break from thinking creatively, like problem solving through making up an image. It's something to look at and then copy over.
What led you to publicly sharing your art?
Back in 2014, I started doing live streaming on Twitch. I wanted to share my process more than just sharing images on Instagram. At that point, Instagram was just an image sharing
Yeah.
platform mostly. And so I wanted to share more of my process. And so I started live streaming and sharing the process on Twitch and resharing it on Instagram. Instagram was my way of like not making my mark on the world, but kind of just sharing, like, hey, you can do it too, kind of mentality. Just like other fellow artists or new artists coming into the field. I just wanted to share little bits of like what I do as an artist to other people because most often I'll get the question like how did you how did you start being an artist? And I'm like, here's how I did it. So I like sharing that.
So you are saying it connects you to a community.
Community has definitely been an important part of my creative process and because I feel like artists can't really survive in a void.
Yeah, so it interesting thing about artists is that a lot of us have this introverted side where we'll get in our studio and work on something by ourselves, right? But then we also have the
Yeah.
extroverted side that tends to benefit from being around other people and especially other creative people because it's a different vibe than being with non-creative folks.
Yeah, definitely. I think I learned when I moved away from home for the first time, I craved like being around a lot of other creative people was like feeding my soul, if you will.
Mm.
Especially after college, after being surrounded by nothing but artists, to like then being out in society where like it's kind of well, the place where I moved at, there weren't as many artists, I feel like. And so, like, searching for those communities were a little harder.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody ever talks about that post college. Now everybody just Googles it. But, like, back then, there was, like, no resources on that. Like, how do you find a creative community?
Yeah. So for you, how do you find people or how have you found people?
When I first moved to Waco, I really struggled the first year trying to find footing on finding a creative community. Then I went to the Waco Cultural Arts Festival. I found the Waco Calligraphy Guild.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what's this? And they're like, we do calligraphy and we meet every second Saturday and you're more than welcome to join. And so it's like, that's cool. I really like lettering. I haven't done it in a while, but I really like lettering. And so I joined one Saturday and I've been a part of the group since 2015. So I would say that it's like my first like successful like find of like finding a community that like really embraced me and been a really awesome like time.
So a lot of people probably have no idea what a calligraphy guild is. Tell us about that. If you were explaining it to somebody, what would you say?
I would say calligraphy is definitely the art of drawing letters, the art of creating letters, or the art of handwriting. Because I feel like for me, how I define calligraphy, I feel like it encapsulates all of the love of letters.
Do I need to have good handwriting to be part of a calligraphy guild?
No. My handwriting sucks sometimes.
Me too. What has been your favorite thing about being part of the calligraphy community?
I think just like the openness to like being a lifelong learner.
Mm.
You're constantly learning like new. I feel like with our group, anyways, we're constantly learning new techniques, new things to do with letters. I just love the openness of the community.
I feel like calligraphy, you can go kind of in multiple directions, right? You can't go that route of like, I really like italic lettering and I'm going to master everything about doing italics. But
Mhm.
then you can also go the route of I'm going to dip my toe into all of these different styles or types of
Mhm.
lettering and just gain a little bit of skills here and there doing different things. So it caters to lots of very different personalities.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely.
What would you say to somebody who is curious about utilizing art or creativity for their mental health, but they are unsure about how to go about it or where to start?
I would say picking up the paintbrush or pencil is the first step. Finding the thing, whether it's 3D work, 2D work, clay work, sculpture, pencil work, painting, find the thing that really piques your interest first. Because I could be like, oh, you should pick up a pencil first, but that's not how everybody starts since we have so many different learners in the world. Starting with what interests you first and then going forward with that and doing a deep dive. Do your research on YouTube, find all the different ways to like do that thing. Buy cheap art supplies. Don't start with the most expensive.
Why is that important?
So that way you free yourself to experiment. If you make mistakes along the way, you're not like, oh, I wasted all that money,
Mm-hmm.
you know, going through and painting and look, this painting is not up to my standard. Like it's not perfect. Because a lot of people have that going. I've found a lot of people who come to me and ask, they get nervous about making mistakes on the paper, but that's a part of the process. I feel like when you have inexpensive art supplies, you can free yourself to express how you will in whatever medium you choose.
What do you do when you have spent time doing a piece of art and then you look at it and you think, I hate it?
I just turn the page. I work a lot in my sketchbooks recently, and so I have a lot of those moments. I look at a piece and I'm like, that's not great. And I just turn the page. That's what paper is for. That's what the new page is for. You can just
Yeah.
turn it over. I know a lot of people like to tear it out or erase it. If it's acrylic, I'll paint over it. Watercolors, I'll start over, set it to the side, start over.
Yeah, I definitely like a turn the page kind of person. I know that you do urban sketching, and one of the things that I've really noticed when I go to workshops is we're all drawing the same thing, and every single drawing comes out different, and everybody loves all the other ones, right? But if you
Mhm,
ask them about their own drawing, they can show you everything that they did wrong.
mhm.
But when other people are looking at it, that's not what they see. We are judging our work much harsher than an outside viewer would be.
I definitely feel like that's probably one of the hardest things with urban sketching comparison is the thief of joy. Is like always the quote that's ongoing in my head whenever it comes to like looking at other people's work. We're all painting the same thing. And yet for some reason we're always like, man, I really wish I had done it that way. I wish I had painted that way instead of this way. So I try not to like compare myself whenever I'm doing my little like outdoor sketches. I try to really focus on what I'm doing and enjoying the process because I can get lost in other people's work so quick.
I like what you said about enjoying the process. That's one thing I like about urban sketching is that you can go and sit somewhere for a couple of hours and draw and paint. It just passes and you're in the moment and you're not having anxious thoughts about everything else that's on your to-do list.
Which is really hard to get into sometimes. When I'm in my studio, I feel like whenever I'm out in a space, it's easier to get into flow. So like getting into that headspace of letting everything else disappear and really focusing on the task at hand. It's easier when I'm out with other people and doing urban sketching or when I'm by myself at a restaurant and I'm sitting by myself. It's easier to just draw.
Do you think it's because you have an idea when you are doing urban sketching, like I'm making a drawing of this thing? Or do you think it has anything to do with sensory input? You would think being out in public, all the noise or movement from other people would be distracting, but it may in some way help us focus. Whereas in a quiet studio, our thoughts maybe go out of control.
I would say it's like a mix. So whenever I am by myself, I'll have my headphones in.
Okay.
I feel like I have a slight like ADHD thing kind of going on. Undiagnosed. I have a hard time focusing on tasks. When I'm out in a space, it can be overstimulating. I have to pop headphones in so I'm not so stimulated by all the sounds. When you're at a restaurant, you hear like the clanging of the pans or people walking around, and other people's conversations can be a little louder. And so sometimes like putting in the headphones will help me. I would say it's having the task at hand that helps me focus. I really enjoy food illustration, which is why you want to see me draw buildings. Most of my travel sketches are food based because I'll always have a picture of said food. But if I have the time, I'll like try to quick sketch generally where everything is and maybe put some colors in real quick before the food gets cold. Because it's right there in front of me, it helps me focus on the task.
And with sketching food, you and I always talk about how difficult it is to draw food or paint food. But like with buildings, the thing is there's perspective. And there's not perspective so much with food.
There's
So
a little bit, but not as much.
yeah, not as much like, oh, my line was at a 30-degree angle instead of a 45-degree angle. Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of misconceptions do you think people have about doing art or something creative as their means of income?
I haven't had a lot of dialogue with people. I feel like I haven't had a lot of dialogue as far as opinions of what people think. Most of the time, when I tell somebody I'm an artist, they'll be like, oh, that's cool. Then they'll ask what I do, and that's about it. I feel like was maybe just like my perception of it. I feel like some people think that art is a frivolous thing.
Mhm.
Like it's not something that's important in the world as a whole right now, like where we're focused so hard on politics and stuff. But I feel like some people feel like art is a frivolous thing and it's something that's not traditionally you would hold as way of income.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of us grew up with family telling us like you cannot make a living as an artist, right? There's no way. There's no way to do that.
It's definitely
Be more practical.
it's definitely like, oh, you're gonna be a poor artist. Great. Parents are like super worried. My parents had that mentality for sure. They've definitely come around to it, but it's not our bread and butter. What I make from my income goes back into my business most of the time. My husband takes care of the both of us. I'm really thankful that I am able to do art. I'm able to do it.
So, if art is not just frivolous and it can help with serious things, how is that possible? What kind of ways can art help us with difficult topics or hard things going on?
I think it's a matter of getting whatever you're thinking down on the paper, whether it's negative or positive. I think it's important that expression gets put down somewhere because when it stays up in your head and you don't talk, like there's, some people don't like to talk about their mental health and stuff. And so if you don't have that safe space or a therapist to talk about those things, it can get jumbled up there. So like having the safe space of like paper, and you can always like burn it later. There's always ways of like disposing what you put down on paper or ways of like masking those feelings on paper. There's ways of putting that onto paper, and if you don't want somebody to see it, they don't have to see it.
Yeah. I talk about that with a lot of my clients. Even if we are not doing art and we're maybe doing journaling to get out what's on our mind and what's causing us some stress or anxiety, that's a concern a lot of people have. How do I do that and not have it where somebody can come look at it and know exactly what
Right.
I'm thinking? We talk about that a lot, right? Like painting over it, like using it as a like an underneath layer for a more complex layered type of piece.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think there's so many like positives to like get it out.
Yeah.
If it's positive or negative, right? I have found like personally, if I do a lot of art that's negative, if I am upset and doing negative things, it's kind of like rumination and it makes me continue to feel bad. Sometimes I will purposely be stressed out about something and then do a positive piece of art because I want to redirect my brain in that way. Have you noticed
I
anything for yourself along those lines?
Most of the time I try to stay pretty positive in my artwork. or neutral, like food. When I've done negative work, I understand what you're talking about. Whenever you're like amidst a negative emotion, it's making it worse and better at the same time. It makes you go deeper into that feeling. You're like, this is not going where I want. And so I pivot. But I usually try to steer more positive and pivot in my mind first before I put it down to paper. If I'm really feeling a certain way, I'll put it to paper and then pivot to something positive.
There's definitely been some instances in the last couple of years, especially that have been pretty difficult that I've been like, this needs to get on the paper, and then I can shift to something more positive.
Mm-hmm.
So I like how you're talking about food being neutral because I think food is such a good subject. When you're traveling, what a way to document like you're in another country or eating things that you don't normally eat. And this is all about your experience based on what food did you eat. But also, I was talking to a friend today about how people show love with food, right? Like we prepare food for other people out of love. We feed people out of love. We do lots of things with food other than just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like because we all have to eat and drink, it's one of those things that's like a nice constant, you know, something that I feel like everybody can connect with food.
What do you think is the hardest part about using food as a subject?
The fact that it's kind of time based, your food's going to get cold if you don't jot down the idea real quick. I take a while. I'm pretty detail oriented when it comes to my food illustrations. And so I'll sit there and I'll be like, I'm going to do this real quick because otherwise my food is just going to start getting cold and unappealing to eat.
Yeah, I definitely noticed when we're out drawing and I'm like, I'm gonna do my food. The food sits there so much longer than it would otherwise, and it does get cold. I still eat it.
Yeah.
It's a completely different experience because I'm focused on like, let me draw it instead of let me just eat it.
No, but what's great is like, so we're talking about hot foods, but when we do cold, when there's a cold food or like, ice cream, that'll melt. Yeah. But sometimes if you're doing a dessert, you don't really have to worry about it. It can sit there for a little bit longer. So it's dependent. Usually I'm doing my hot food. It's like, it's getting cold.
Yeah, I know you and I always pick the hardest things to
Me
draw.
too.
Right?
I want to pick the things that I want to eat, so
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
help that. Most of the time, it's fries.
So, looking back, what role do you think art has played in your personal growth?
I definitely think I'm a better problem solver,
Mhm.
as I feel like as an artist, you're always trying to figure out how to get said thing that you're drawing or painting onto the paper. I feel like I'm a better problem solver, and then I also feel like it helps me slow down my thinking. Often, I have a lot of thoughts, and I can think myself into a rut. But with art, it helps me slow down my thinking and step things out into gradual steps a lot better.
Yeah, like specifically with watercolor, you have to layer that, right? You don't start out
Yeah.
with the brightest, most saturated colors. You start with a more watered down version, let it dry, and then you add to make it more complex. Yeah.
Definitely with watercolors, but art has helped me switch gears quicker too because if I'm doing a watercolor piece and then I have to switch to acrylic, then you have to do the opposite thing and you have to start with the darkest and then layer up to
And
the
you work
lightest.
fast. So then looking forward, what role do you hope art will play in your life in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it'll just continue to help me with my process of thinking just in general. Art is definitely my safe place where I feel like I can think if I'm having a difficult time. Like recently, I had a friend that passed away. Drawing helped me reflect the time that I had with her. I feel like art is always going to be that place for me to help me reflect on life.
What is something that you wish you had known like 10 or 15 years ago about art and creativity?
Mm. It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I really feel like that because I mean, I'm still trying to undo some sort of perfectionist in me. I used to be really perfectionist back then. And since I was just learning, I felt like I had to do techniques like perfect. And I struggled a lot with that. It's like, it didn't look like how the teacher said it was supposed to look. Telling myself it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to mess up a few pieces of watercolor paper.
Yeah, it is just paper. We can always make another one if we want, especially when you're starting out. Like you were saying, when you first started, you're learning. Of course, you're not going to be perfect at it. So giving ourselves grace in that period. And actually, I think all of us probably need to give ourselves grace more frequently in all areas of life, be nicer to ourselves and more forgiving.
Yeah, I feel like just definitely giving yourself grace to make mistakes, to put down what you're thinking on the paper. If it doesn't turn out, it's okay. You have another sheet. And that's like putting into practice, making your practice in art.
So I've had several artists that say the most important thing is to just show up and keep doing art. Regardless of how it turns out, you just keep showing up. If you have a creative block, you just keep showing up, and that's what helps you progress.
I feel like even if you're going through an art block, it'll still be there later. If you need to take a break, take a break. Sometimes it's there to tell you that your brain needs a break. It's okay to take a break.
Yeah. Is there an artist that is inspiring to you right now?
Right now, I have a lot of friends that are artists. I would say you. Because you always show up. I love seeing your artwork and seeing how consistent you are. And oh my gosh, you're so fast. You are so fast.
Yeah, that's one thing though, when I'm like, for instance, when I'm at an urban sketching workshop, we have, an hour and a half to do it. Often I'm done within that hour. I'm very fast. And then I'm like, I should have slowed down. Like that's something I'm trying to get myself to do. Take a little more time and be more precise or detailed when I'm doing my drawings. But, it's a learning process.
Yeah, I definitely admire that you can get the idea onto the sheet of paper really fast. I feel like I'm too detailed. I'm trying to do the opposite of you. I'm trying to speed up my work. I'll just sit there and focus in on that one little fry, and I'm like looking at the shadows and
Yeah. Yeah. Where can people find you online if they want to follow you or learn more or work with you?
you can find me on Instagram at the Art Lab TX. I also have an Etsy, which is not current right now, but I'm updating it. So also under the Art Lab TX.
It's a lot to keep up with when you are self-employed. You do everything yourself.
Yes. Back. Yep. Wear all the hats.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you feel is important for people to know?
Art is definitely something where people can feel. It can be a good place for feelings to reside. A lot of people feel like when they're learning something new, it has to be like step, step, step. You can put your emotions into it. It's a good place to put it.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you a question that I ask a lot of my clients at the end of our sessions. What is one self-care activity that you plan to do in the next week that is just for enjoyment or for your well-being?
That's not related to art.
It can be related to art, it can
Uh,
be non-art related.
self care, self care. I'm really bad at self-care. I'm really bad at self-care. Definitely, I'm gonna be working out this week. I'll be going to the gym and doing Zumba.
I love Zumba. It's so fun to dance and
It's so
move your
fun.
body.
It's a great way to work out without thinking about working out. Like that's my favorite kind of workout. I don't want to be like I'm lifting, I'm doing reps, I'm thinking about the number. I like to move, watch the instructor, and move my body.
Well, I think that is all the questions that I have for you today. I really
I
appreciate
hope I
it.
answered them okay.
Yes, of course, of course.